Anyway, on to some stories. Got, you remember a couple weeks ago we covered Ohio's ballot issue number 1?
I do not remember off the top of my head.
I feel like we covered that here. I might be wrong. I might have meant to cover it, but didn't. But I feel like we did cover it. Anyway, the long and short of it is ballot measure number 1. They've got a vote to, like, they're trying to protect abortion rights in their constitution in Ohio.
That's coming up. Remember this now.
Yeah, so that's coming up in November. And in order to change the Constitution, it needs to go to a public vote, and it needs to pass with a simple majority. 50% or more have to vote in favor of the change in order for it to change. Republicans are now being like, ooh, turns out significantly greater than 50% of Ohioans are in favor of abortion rights, but we don't want them to have abortion rights, so let's pass a ballot measure in August, a time when we actually earlier passed a resolution making ballot measures in August not legal because they cost too much money and nobody turns out to them. So let's make an August ballot measure to change how changing the Constitution works, and requires a 60% majority instead of a simple 50% majority to make it harder to change the Constitution. And you're like, it was a very thinly veiled, like they were trying to publicly hide that it was about the abortion thing, but like in private, they were just there. Well, no, in private, they would just like come out and say, no, it's about the abortion thing. And also a pro-life advocacy group was like the primary funder of this ballot measure that they just voted on. So
when you follow the money, you know where it is. When you follow the people who are willing to squeal on the conversations, you know what it's about. Every single signpost is pointing the same way.
Yeah. So anyway, They interviewed a bunch of people that voted on it. So this person was there to vote on issue number 1, which is a measure meant to raise the voting threshold needed to approve a state constitutional amendment from simple majority, as most states require, to 60%. And this is one of those everyone kind of knows, says Mr. Is that a Polish name?
Let's see here.
Judging by how many consonants are in a row here, I'm going to say it's Polish.
Trzynowski,
sure. So 57% of voters voted against issue number 1, which that's lower than I thought it would be, but issue 1 was defeated soundly. They say it seems underhanded. It doesn't seem like the way we should conduct our politics. It was primarily about blocking abortion rights.
So much of the money and support came from Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America.
Yeah.
Which is it's what you said. I mean, where the money comes from.
It's like they're trying to say that issue number 1 is not about abortion, but the primary money for this issue is coming from a pro-abort or an anti-abortion group. That kind of says it's about abortion.
I mean, at that point, you can only lay so many bricks that are red before you have to just call the house fucking red.
Okay, so I'm going to have to read this quote. It's Rebecca Ferris, a 74-year-old lady, and she's a registered Republican who voted against issue 1, because this is a bipartisan issue where, like, a lot of Republicans were voting against it as well. And so I have to do an old lady voice for this. So it's a little bit of a magic trick. The people who engineered it have covered it so that you don't really see the cards that are there. Oh, no, I did it wrong. It's a magical trick. It's not a magic trick.
It's a little bit of a magic trick.
It's a little bit of a magical trick. Actually, I have no idea how this is going to sound, but if
are you gonna use a pass through?
No, I'm gonna use a filter, but unfortunately, it's gonna affect you too. So you're gonna be
a little old lady as well.
I'm gonna be old ladyfied.
Yeah. So so it's a little bit of a magic trick. Magical trick. The people who engineered it.
You don't sound like an old lady. You sound like a teenager whose balls forgot to drop.
Okay, well.
I can't actually hear my own effects. This is the sort of thing you're supposed to set up in advance.
Wait until you hear it in post. I'll hear it again when I'm editing this video later.
Okay. I'm using the Go XLR. I literally have a gender button on my... There, a gender knob on my thing. It's like...
Gender knob?
I have a gender knob. I can change my gender. I'm gender fluid.
Just wait until we get to the point of transhumanism where people will actually have installed gender knobs.
So for many Ohioans, this is barely concealed political strategizing. The fact that it is barely concealed political strategizing is what clinched their decision to come out and vote against the measure. It's likely that most of the votes against the referendum reflected the views of the people who saw issue 1 as a threat to abortion rights. As the final tally lined up neatly with polling about the abortion rights amendment. So the people that are pro-protecting abortion are about the same number of people that are against this this amendment, or no, this issue 1. Issue 1.
Considering that issue 1 was totally not about abortion, and yet
yeah,
here we are. I mean, those are the numbers you'd kind of expect at that point. So basically, the people who were the same people statistically who were voting to remove abortion rights were the same people who were trying to vote to push issue 1 through.
Yes, and what I like about this is that so people in their little poll survey thing, they said people were grumbling about the campaign issue. Sorry, people grumbled that the campaign for issue 1 was disingenuous, a game, or a sneaky tactic, and that its backers were trying to pull a fast one. And this sentiment was bipartisan, which says to me that, like, Republicans, like, maybe not the hardcore MAGA Trump people that are making the most noise, but Republicans are seeing through these sneaky, underhanded tactics and are fed up with them. I'm hoping, this gives me hope for the upcoming presidential election, that Republicans will see what's going on in the Republican Party and be able to, like, suck it up and vote against, like, especially in the primaries, vote against Trump. And then maybe in the actual final election, if you don't want Trump, vote against Trump.
So I want that to happen, since
Yeah,
that's what happened.
No,
that's what happened during 2020.
It's not going to happen countrywide. Like, I know there are some places like Georgia, unfortunately, are probably just going to be solid red, right?
Wait, but Georgia went blue.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
2020, Georgia went blue.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just saying Georgia because that's where you are.
Yeah.
And I know they're pretty solid red.
So Georgia is somewhat solid red, except when you get to Atlanta and Savannah and Marietta.
Well, isn't that the way it always is? When you get to the big cities, it's blue.
When you get to the population centers, it magically turns blue.
When you get to where the people live.
Yeah. There's a lovely saying called land doesn't vote.
Well, tell the Electoral College that.
Well, the Electoral College can suck my left one. I don't like the Electoral College.
Yeah, no. Got Mickle J Money saying Florida will be red. Yeah, probably the way it's looking right now. But I mean, Florida historically has been a swing state, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. I would like to see Texas turn blue.
Blue Texas would be hilarious.
It's probably not going to happen this time. But it gets closer every election cycle. It gets closer to being a blue Texas, and I would love to see it.
The more expensive it gets to live in Texas, the more blue Texas goes. Because as Texans realize, wait a minute, maybe the GOP doesn't have our best interests in heart. Weird.
Yeah.
You eventually hit that point.
And then the rest, like, it's just... it's mostly just interviews with these people, but like Ohio voters may not. Oh yeah, this was an interesting thing. Is that like Ohio? Like, I'm saying I hope that this is indicative of what will happen nationwide during the presidential election, but apparently Ohio is a weird spot where voters vote much more hardline Republican than they actually feel. So like, there's a gap between where people are on the issues and where people are identifying with the candidates. So like they'll vote for the Republican candidate because they've got the R beside their name, even though they're pro-gun regulation and they are pro-abortion and pro-LGBTQ rights or whatever.
I mean, that's kind of that's literally how my mom's side of the family is. Just about all of them are a flavor of Republican. But when I ask them, like, how do you feel about trans people? How do you feel about gay people? How do you feel about school shootings? It's like everything you believe is somewhat left of center, but every way you vote is hardline right. What? Why? That's why I did a post on Twitter and I did a post on YouTube recently. That's just like, hey, if you like Trump, why? What is your specific reason why? And there was one person in my chat who did say, like, because he's better than Biden. And I can understand that perspective. Biden's not the greatest we've had. We've certainly had better Democratic presidents. But
would you say he's better than him, though?
But here's the thing, though. Even if that's your perspective of like, well, he's better than Biden. Okay, cool. Hold on to that thought. Two things. One, what has Biden done that you don't like? And now let's continue the question. What has Trump done that you like? Because if he's better than Biden, okay, cool. You still didn't answer the question. Why do you like Trump? What does he do that you enjoy?
I feel like better than Biden is going to be focusing on like mental competency. Like Biden fell off his bike and he looks flabby at the beach or whatever.
You wait, but that's
like,
both of those are Trump.
Yeah, I know. It's all I'm not saying it makes sense. I'm saying that's probably what they're going for, because I was just going to bring up the fact that, like, according to the transcript at his arraignment, he stumbled over his own name and birthday, and like forgot his name for a minute, or forgot what the J stood for in his name. But,
I don't know what the J stands for in his name either.
John. It's Donald John Trump.
Oh,
yeah.
That's the first I've ever heard about or cared about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, Progress Only says Trump wouldn't ride a bike. Yeah, do you remember that thing where, like, apparently he thinks that the more you exercise, the faster you die? Like you have a certain number of energy units for your whole life, and when you exercise more, you run out of them.
This is my dad said this as a joke once years ago. And granted, this was coming from somebody who was in the military and did PT all the time, so like this was obviously facetious. But he was like, your body's like a car. Your car has a certain number of miles and then it gives out. Your body has a certain number of heartbeats and then it gives out. I'm not spending them doing X, Y, or Z.
So the heartbeat thing, there is some truth to that, because like on average, the animals, like if like number of heart rate of an animal kind of correlates with lifespan. Like the slower the heart rate goes, the longer the lifespan is. And like there is a correlation there, but it's not because that's how many that's how many beats your heart has in it when you're born. It's just that's the way it kind of worked out.
Gotcha.
It's also more of a body size thing. Like smaller animals tend to have faster heartbeats and they tend not to live as long. It's not so much that they live less time because of the heartbeat thing. It's more that they just have faster life cycles in general. Like if it takes 18 years to raise a kid, evolutionarily speaking, you need to live longer to raise that kid than if the kid is like self-sufficient as soon as it's born. And oh my god, I have 5 kids, so like self-sufficient as soon as they're born would be fucking amazing. Just pop that one out, turn your back, be like, nope, see ya, you're on your own.
Can I get a new Game Boy? Absolutely not. Go work like the rest of us. You can do it.
No, yeah,
haven't you seen Bambi?
You can get a Game Boy when you buy your Game Boy yourself with your own damn money.
We have Game Boy at home. Hands you an emulator. This is
I
free.
mean, the emulator, you get better controls with the emulator.
Depends on the console, but yes.
Yeah. I'm thinking PC. PC just by default gets all the best controls, because if keyboard and mouse doesn't do it for you, you can just plug in a controller.
You can. There's some
hashtag PC issue... Master Race.
Oh my god. The only issue you run into sometimes is if there's not a good PC alternative to a proprietary controller, and there's a game that is built with that proprietary controller in mind. For a while, we had this issue with like Wiimotes, where it was hard to get Dolphin to run stuff very well because your option was to try to emulate Wiimote swings with the mouse, and that ain't too good.
Okay, so anyway, that's basically all I want to say about this.